So the big news for the Browns this week is Amari Cooper not showing up to the minicamp. The mandatory minicamp. Yeah. He wants a new contract. What I'm seeing is that it's not necessarily the money, it's the length.
Yes.
That's what I saw today. Yeah.
So that was from, I think, Brad, whatever, Steenbrook or whatever on Twitter. And I think he's normally pretty good with that, his stuff. So, so what are you guys' thoughts? Do we need to be worried? Are you mad at Amari Cooper for holding out? Like, where do you guys stand on this?
Just real quick, it's hard for me to be mad at a player for having the opportunity to make more money or to have longer security at his job, especially since we talk all the time, NFL careers are so limited. So, I mean, he's got this opportunity right now. Wide receivers are getting paid like crazy this offseason. So I get it. I get why he's doing it.
Yeah, I'm not mad either. My thing is, I'm like, I guess to answer your question, I'm a little concerned, right?
It wasn't at first.
Yeah. So it's not that, so my thing is, it's not that it's even like concerned that it'll get done. Cause I don't think that they'll trade him. Like, to me, that's just crazy. That's craziness. But like, he was such a pivotal part of our offense the last 2 years. And I think that if you don't have this guy on your team, everything that you've put in place up until this point has taken a step back. Because then now you're talking about Jerry Jeudy, a guy that was going to get success as a number 2. Now he's stepping into a one role, and he's got to be the guy. And Amari Cooper was the only guy really for us. I mean, we had David, but like Amari Cooper showed up the last 2 years for us. So
I would say that if Amari Cooper is not playing for the Browns this year, Judy's not going to be the number 1 still. He's not just going to not be on the Browns and just not bring anybody in. Right. You know what I mean? Like, we would be trading him for somebody else, I think, that would fill his role. The name I keep hearing is Brandon Ayuk.
Which we talked about him back in like February or March.
My only problem with that is, I guess if it's not the money and it's just more about longevity, then the Niners would maybe be able to stomach it, but they're not signing Ayuk because of money. Right. You know what I mean? So how are they going to then sign if Amari Cooper doesn't want to get traded to the Niners and then just hold out there? You know what I mean? So I think everything's on the table. I do think they'll get a deal done. The Browns have been really good about taking care of their players so far. I can see Amari's side of this where he's like, you traded for me, and all I've done since I've been here is lead the AFC North in receiving 2 years in a row. And this is a division that has Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and other high-profile wide receivers. He's like, and I did it playing with 5 different quarterbacks last year. Mm-hmm. And you know what I mean?
2 different ones the year before.
The year before. So all I've done is come in and produce at an extremely high level, have career years for you guys, be a leader. He's played banged up, all this stuff. He's like, and then how am I being rewarded? You go trade for Jerry Jeudy and extend him. You know what I mean? Okay. So I can see his side of it. I think they'll get a deal done. Andrew Berry will figure out a way to get it done. It is. I want him practicing though. For the basically, if we were just going to roll out the same old offense, it is what it is. But we got Deshaun coming back from injury. He hasn't got to play with Amari that much, in their time so far in Cleveland, and it's a whole new offense. And Amari's a smart guy, and he's a vet, and he can learn the offense and all that good stuff. But nothing can replace reps, actually doing it on the field. So I want them to get it. They need to get it figured out sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and honestly, on the positive side of this whole thing is the fact that this was Amari's last year under contract with the Browns. So, and he's set to make $23.8 million this year against the cap. So, I mean, he's making good money for this season, and he could have just come in and said, all right, I'll just play out this season. If you guys give me an extension, cool. If not, I'll just go play somewhere else. But like this kind of shows me he wants to be here. He wants to be here longer term. He wants to be a part of this. So he obviously sees the value. Like we'll talk to Amari and Brown later, but of being in Cleveland.
Does he want to be here? Or does he just he wants to be somewhere not a lot of players like to play on the last year of their deal. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, Mike Evans did it last year at 30, and all he did was go out there and earn himself a good extension with them.
Yeah, but I feel like that's not the norm. Most players don't play on the last year of their deal. They almost always look to get their extension before their deal's up, because then Amari Cooper gets injured and he has no negotiating power. If he gets hurt in week 8 and he's out the rest of the year, he's got no leverage for next year. You know,
That's a good point.
But
which is why the Browns, I'm sure, they're having their conflict right now of duration of contract.
I know the one thing, like, they could save a bunch of money and probably do some stuff if they restructure Deshaun, but they're in a position where they might not want to restructure Deshaun this year because they can actually afford to take the cap hit this year. You know what I mean? And kind of make the future a little easier. So I think they don't want to restructure him to free up a bunch of money.
To talk about that real quick, I did put a note in here about that. So if this is over the cap, it shows that if the Browns would restructure Watson this year, they could save $33.6 million against the cap. That's a ton. But like you just said, I wouldn't be surprised if they're trying to avoid that, take on that $63 million cap hit this year, because the team's already set up to do it. We've got like $13.7 million in cap space with that.
Yes.
So this would be a good year. I'm sure this, from the Browns' perspective, of let's take that cap hit. We've got everything structured. Everybody's on the team. Everybody's locked in, except for Amari.
Yep. But I agree too, though. Like, it's got to be Amari or somebody of Amari's caliber. We can't roll into this season with Jerry Jeudy as the number one. It's too. I'm perfectly okay with trading for Jeudy and even extending him his deal as a number 2, as a potentially a high end number 2 with number 1 ceiling sometime down the road if he develops the way we think he can with Deshaun in this offense. He's too unproven to be the number 1 this year, in my opinion. It's got to be It's got to be Amari or somebody on Amari's level is the Browns' number 1 wide receiver this year.
I think that's where it's kind of crazy too, because it becomes risky. So let's say you can't get a deal done with San Francisco, right? And Amari's still just hanging out saying, hey, I'm not playing. After that, who's really available? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it becomes a thing where you're like taking a bigger swing just to bring a guy. And the guy you're probably going to bring in, I know, like, I've heard stuff with free agents, like they're like, oh, Michael Thomas. I'm like, no. Like that's not an answer.
Yeah, it's not 2016.
If it was, then
17.
Hell yeah, let's go. But I think it's critical that they get that figured out.
Now I'll say this: the Browns can literally do nothing, and Amari Cooper is not going to hold out forever. He's not going to just give away all of his money in fines, and then he's not going to sit out. If he was 24, maybe he sits out games this year and refuses to play. He's not going to. Sitting out this year does nothing for him. He lose all his leverage again. He'd be going into next year, he's a 30-year wide receiver who didn't play last year. You don't even know what he has left in the tank. Like, he's got to go out and perform this year. He knows that. So he'll play. It's just I'd rather him be playing happy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and doesn't he like the – and does he not deserve – right. That's kind of where I'm at. Like, it's not like he –
just like the Browns took care of Nick Chubb, they very easily could have walked away from Nick Chubb, and saved money. Just like they've taken care of a lot of guys. I think they'll take care of Amari Cooper.
Amari Cooper is the type of wide receiver that I do think he's going to be productive into his 30s. He just turned 30 over the weekend or the other day. So this is his age 30 season. I think we've seen the last 2 years now. He's had 2 of his top 3 best career seasons. And I think that this is a guy that he might not be your number 1 leading receiver by the time he's 33, 34, but I think he could still be playing football at a decent level at 33, 34. He's that kind of receiver with the route running, with crazy, the way he's just so his football IQ. He knows where to be for the quarterback. He doesn't win on physicality, high pointing balls, elite speed, all that kind of stuff. Like his skill set translates to more success at an older age, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's like the basketball player. When you have your freak athlete basketball player who never learns to shoot, his career's not very long. And then you have your guy who can put the biscuit in the basket, as they say, and he can have a 15-year career because in year 10, when his athleticism starts to slip, he can still go score. He can still shoot.
Yeah, that's
great.
What
I mean? It's kind of like Amari. He can still go out there. It doesn't matter how old he gets. He's still going to be able to run precise routes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Still going to be one of the best route runners in the league. So I agree with that. But I'm very interested to see what happens. I would love for them to they need to get it figured out sooner rather than later.
Yep.
Yeah, they do, because another thing I was looking up too is if they don't get this figured out before training camp, he's not going to be holding out. He's going to be holding in. And I just want to talk about this because holding in or a hold in, let's see, I pulled this from a website. It's essentially a collective bargaining agreement loophole. As a hold in, the player shows up at training camp on time, but he does not take part in team activities until his contract dispute is settled. The player avoids daily fines for unexcused absences and simply refuses to work. So
Hold
basically
in.
show up and say, well, I'm not going out on the field today, and they can't fine him.
That's kind of wild.
Well, and then the last part of this, the league and the teams have not yet publicly taken action against this method, though it will likely be addressed in the next collective bargaining
Imagine
agreement.
if you just showed up to work and they were like, hey, go do this. And you're like, no.
Yeah.
And they were like, what do you mean no? And you'd be like, well, I'm here. So I give me my paycheck. I'm here.
Yeah.
They're like, you're not doing anything. But I'm here. You know what I mean? Like, how does that even work? And the Browns just don't need the distraction.
Right.
They just don't need any of that. I just want to come in, quiet, just go about our business. Everything's taken care of, and just go out and play football. I don't want to deal with any headaches. So, anything else about Amari?
No, just
Get it done.
Get it done. Yep, exactly.
Let us know what you guys think. Are you guys worried at all? Do you think they get a deal done? Let us know.